Today is Monday and it is Meatless Monday. We are going to be making tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwiches. While this doesn't have meat in it, it is not vegetarian because I'm using chicken stock as the base. So if you are a vegetarian, then what you're going to want to do is use a vegetable broth instead of the chicken broth. And then you'll be good to go in terms of vegetarian. Now there's butter and cheese in here as well, so it's not vegan either. Even if you take away the chicken broth, you'll still have the dairy in it. So there's going to be some cooking time involved in this, and so I thought during this cooking time, when I don't have anything to say about the menu, what I will have to do is talk about cast iron. So we're cooking in cast iron tonight. Now, with cast iron, you want to heat up the pan before you put any food in it. So we've got this. This is where we're going to make the soup in the Dutch oven, and then we're going to make the grilled cheese sandwich over here in the skillet. So the skillet isn't heated up yet at all, it's just sitting there, but I am warming up the Dutch oven. The recipe today comes from this book, the Prairie Homestead Cookbook. Now it says simple recipes for heritage cooking in any kitchen. It's a really great book. I like it, and it has a lot of additional information in there beyond recipes. It talks if you want to raise chickens, what kind of chickens you should raise. It talks about goats and cows and sheep, all kinds of things. So it's kind of a homesteading thing. These people decided that they wanted to be homesteaders, and so they got many acres and started doing this homesteading thing. So that's pretty cool. I am going to drop a couple of waters. Alright, so I just sprayed water on here, and the water bounces around. Now you can't see it from where you are, but it does bounce around, so that means it's time to start putting the stuff in. So we've got butter in that we want to melt. It is a quarter cup of butter. And as soon as the butter melts, I'm actually going to turn the oven down a little bit, or the stove down a little bit. As soon as the butter melts, we're going to put in a quarter cup of onions. And let those cook until they're soft. So we're going to put the quarter cup of onions in. And as soon as they start cooking down, about 2 minutes, then we're going to go ahead and put the garlic in. Depending upon where my garden is at the time, I oftentimes don't use fresh garlic. I use the already minced garlic. It's easier and it's faster, but I also have garlic growing in my garden, and so when that starts to be ready to be harvested, then we'll do. Then I'll use more fresh garlic. Now my kids tell me that I don't cut my pieces of vegetables and stuff like that small enough. I cut them big. And I do that deliberately because I like to be able to taste it. I don't like I don't like Campbell's vegetable soup because everything is so teeny, you can't taste it. And so I do tend to do larger bite sizes. But we're going to actually be using an immersion blender, which you can't see, I can see if it's here on the side of the stove, and start making it and blend some of it. Now again, I'm not going to blend it to a total cream because I like a little bit of bites. And so we'll be doing some bites with that. Okay, so it says 4 cloves of garlic. I like garlic, and so I generally put a little bit more in than what the recipe says. It is I think it's really hard to get too much garlic, at least for my taste and for my family's taste. So we're just going to let that heat up for just a minute, and then we're going to put the spices in. Now, I usually measure this stuff out first so that it's easier and I don't have quite as many pieces sitting around. So here what we've got is 3 tablespoons of flour, which is going to thicken the soup. We have 2 tablespoons of basil, 1 of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. And so that's all in here, and we're going to put it all in at the same time in about less than a minute. And we're going to kind of spread it around. And then we're going to go ahead and stir it up. Now, basically what you just made is a roux. It is flour and butter, and that is something that you can use to thicken anything. It is that's what I use to thicken my gravy. It is so anytime I make it. Now this chicken stock is actually, you can see probably on the top, there's spices kind of around, and there's a little bit of chicken fat in there as well. This is homemade bone broth. So what I do is I save all of my chicken bones, and then I go ahead and when I have enough, I make bone broth out of them. And bone broth is basically putting some chicken bones and a little bit of apple cider vinegar, which cooks out so you don't even taste it. And but it helps bring the calcium and minerals out of the bones, so it's better than what a commercial one would be. And then you also, I put in spices. If I've got onions, I'll put onion in it. Again, I put garlic in it because I like the taste of garlic. So, and we are going to put in 4 cups of undrained tomatoes. This again is a little bit more than 4 cups because we are, they come in 14-ounce containers instead of 16-ounce containers. And rather than use them for something else, I'll just go ahead and make my tomato soup just a little bit more tomatoey. So, can you see it? This is what it looks like. Now we are going to go ahead and let it cook for 20 minutes. I don't think I have my my thing here. So we're going to guesstimate what 20 minutes is. Because when I'm doing live, time doesn't come up on the telephone. So while this is cooking, I am going to talk about cast iron. So when I was deciding to talk about cast iron today, what I realized is I've got a lot of cast iron. But the other thing that I realized, this is my grandma's pan that went through my mom and came to me, and it will ultimately go to one of my daughters if they decide that they like cooking with cast iron. One of them does, and her children like it. The other daughter and my daughter-in-law, not so much. But the sad thing that happened when I was thinking about this is I was an adult when my grandmother died, but for some reason I don't know any of her stories. So when I am teaching and when I am reading cards, or even if I'm just generally talking to somebody in the shop, I find that I tell a lot of stories. So if you come into the shop, even though you've probably never met any of my kids, you know a lot about them because I talk about them. And I talk about when I was a child, and I talk about, and I do this so that my grandchildren, and now my great-grandchildren, have stories that they can say, well, Grandma used to do this. And it is, it's important to have that kind of seamlessness with our ancestors. Because if we don't know what our ancestors did and how they did it, we lose a tremendous amount of our personal story, but also the story of history and how everything went. So tell your stories, okay? Come and tell me your stories, tell your children your stories, and know that I am really sad that I don't know my grandmother's story. I do know one story about her, though, and I'm going to tell you because I can. And that is, my maiden name was Nielsen, and it's Danish. And my father's mother, which is the owner of this pan, and I don't even know if this pan was hers new or if it came from her mother. That's why I was sad. It is, her last name was Nielsen. Now, I've got an older sister who at some point will be listening to this if she's not listening to it right now. And she, as a little girl, could not say Nielsen. And so she called that grandmother Grandma Nutten. And 7 years later, I came along, and being the lazy bones that I am, Nutten seemed to be a little bit too hard, and so I called her Grandma Nut. And for years and years, that's how everybody knew her, was Grandma Nut. And so even my children know her as Grandma Nut. And it is, and that is, it's just a kind childhood memory that that is pretty good. And she has a better name anyway, because my other grandmother, my mother's mother, we called her Grandma down the street. So my grandkids call me Grandma Lind. So I don't have a unique name like my grandmother's did, but it is still a lot of fun to remember her. Now, cast iron has been around since forever. I mean, they were big Dutch ovens that were used to cook over fires. They're sand casted. They're molded with sand casting is how they're made. They can be spendy. And so your best bet is if we start seeing garage sales coming up again, take a look. And if you see cast iron, give some consideration to picking it up. The two oldest and no longer in business are Griswold and Wagner. And if you find either of them, man, you have found something amazing. Now, the current big seller is Lodge. Lodge was founded in 1896, so still Lodge has been around forever. If you get a cast iron pan from a garage sale, it is more than likely that you are going to have to reseason it. And so if you see one and it's all rusty and ugly, buy it anyway, because you're going to clean it up and you're going to reseason it, and it's going to be amazing. It is, you would take like a plastic scrubby and scrub with soap and water all of the rust out. And then the way that you season it is simply take lard or Crisco and put a light coating on the inside and the outside, and then put the pan upside down on a baking sheet, put it in the oven and bake it at 350 for an hour. Then turn the oven off and let the pan cool all the way down. Cast iron gets really hot, and so you have to be really careful with it. It is, then wipe it down, and there you go. The first couple times you cook something in a new pan, you're going to want to cook something fatty. Fried chicken or bacon or something, fried potatoes that has some fat in it. The potatoes don't, but the oil that you use do. And after you've done that a couple times, you'll find that these pans become non-stick. And so it's better than Teflon, because Teflon has things that make you sick. There is no aluminum in it, which also has been shown to make you sick. And it does have iron. So if you are iron deficient, this is it adds a little bit of iron to your food. So that makes it pretty good. You can bake, you can saute, you can stew, you can fry, you can roast, you can stir fry. You can do anything, and in pans that are this way. And they have a boatload of kinds of different pans. This one is a Dutch oven. Now it's a big, like a spaghetti pan, but it's got a flat bottom, and so you're going to use it on your stove. This one is called a spider. Now it actually only has 3 legs. There's 1, 2, 3, and you use this on in fireplaces and in burn pits. That's my potato pan. I cook potatoes. I roast potatoes in my fireplace during the wintertime. And it's just absolutely amazing. Great potatoes. And it keeps the ashes off. I used to roll them up in foil and put them in the ashes. And then it was like, Lynn, you have a lot of cast iron. Why aren't you using your cast iron? And that's what I've been doing ever since. And it is pretty darn amazing. It is, skillets can come with angled or tall, straight up walls here, depending upon what it is that you want to do with it. You can get griddles. So here's a little tiny griddle. So it has no, it doesn't really have sides. And this one you can do pancakes, you can do eggs, and I only make a little bit for me. That is a good one. I've got another one that's a rounded one. And you can get other pans that are, I don't even know, they're different pans. So I have an Abelskiver pan that's up there, but I'm not quite tall enough to reach it, which is for Danish pancake balls. Or if you're Dutch, you would cook oliebollen in it. You can get bread pans, you can get muffin pans, you can get cornbread pans that look like corns. I mean, one of these days I'm going to get one of those, because I think those are absolutely amazing. It is, and I wrote notes down here so that I wouldn't forget to tell you all the different things. So the care of your cast iron pan, it's a little bit more care than you would use for stainless steel or aluminum, but it's not really that big of a deal. Now, people who use cast iron are very definitely in one of three camps. Okay, one says you just simply wipe the pan out, maybe put a little bit of extra oil in it again, and leave it. That's it. You don't wash it, you don't add water, you don't add soap. There are others that say you use hot water and like a plastic scraper. So here's my plastic scraper. It sits right here on the sink because I use the pans all the time. And some people say you can use a mild soap. I guess I come down on all three. It depends on what I was making and what was left in the pan. But I will take a little bit of olive oil and put it on a paper towel and rim it out. You have to keep your cast iron dry. So when I was a little girl, my mother had a gas stove, and we would cook with the cast iron, then we would wash it, and we would dry it, and then she would put it on the stove top and turn the gas on again for a minute to make sure that there was absolutely no moisture in it at all. It is, I don't do that here because I have an electric stove and it takes too long for it to heat up. It is, so that doesn't make sense to me. We talked about how to re-season it and to clean it out if you get a secondhand one. And the other thing that you can do is if you are piling your pans up, because I've got a lot of cast iron. I've got 6 spiders, 3 that I use for magic and 3 that I use for cooking. I've got 2 Dutch ovens. I have got, but there's a small one and a big one. I've got 10 skillets of various sizes. I've got 4-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch, and 10-inch, and I did just buy a 12-inch one, which I probably didn't need, but I fell in love with. I've got 2 griddles and an Elskever pan. It is, so most of mine, which you can't see, but right here on the wall, I have got a wall hanging thing with S hooks, and so the majority of my cast iron is hanging on my wall. Any of the skillets. Now, I don't hang the Dutch ovens because that would not be functional. But all of the skillets and the griddles and the Elskever pan, which is built just like a skillet but has holes in it or little balls in it, they're all hung up here. And so they stay dry. But if you're stacking them, you want to put like a paper towel on it before you put another one on top of it to make sure that they all stay dry. Cooking, the reason, why is it that you're going to use this? Now, we talked about it, it adds iron to your food, which is very good. It heats, it gets very hot, and it heats evenly. And so, especially with the electric stove, I will turn it off before the food is finished cooking because it will continue to cook, because it takes a while for the burner to turn totally off, but the pan holds the heat. So the other thing you have to do is make sure that you've got oven mitts, because if you just reach over and grab this, you're going to burn your hand just ridiculously. And it is, they've also got now these I don't know, silicone things. Now this is not it, but this is the fabric that it's made from. So like this. But they are in the shape of the handle, and so it just slides right on the handle, and the handle then doesn't get hot. And they're not expensive. I don't know why I don't have any, but I don't. it is, if you are going to serve out of this and you put it on your table, make sure you put it on a trivet, otherwise you're going to burn your table. And, you know, that's not good. Now, I use the skillets. I've got one that has a little bit deeper walls, and I use that to bake bread in. So it's called skillet bread, and it is, you can bake it in the oven, or you can bake it in a campfire, and it is, and it's pretty amazing stuff. If you are interested in learning how to cook in a campfire, let me know, and I will send you the how many briquettes you use. Now, you cannot use briquettes in your fireplace in the house, and I just use the coals from my fire, but you can get very precise with the number of briquettes that you put underneath the spider and then on top of the spider, and you can bake cakes and pizzas and bread and anything you want, and it's pretty darn amazing. So what we're going to do now is use the immersion blender, and then we're going to put 1 cup of heavy cream in this. Now, this is your frugal tip for today, which I don't give you all the time because I forget. I don't drink milk. For whatever reason, I used to drink it, but I haven't in a great many years. And so if I'm going to make something like potato soup or creamy tomato soup and it calls for milk, I have 2 sources. I have both powdered milk that I'll use and put it in, or I'll also use heavy cream. Now, this one actually called for the heavy cream. But what I find is you can use some heavy cream and some water, because if you don't want it that rich, but the cream lasts, has a much, much longer shelf life than milk does. And so you can get them in smaller bottles. I knew that I was going to be doing a bunch of soup and stuff, so I have the bigger bottle. But it has like a 2-month sell-by date. And so I throw away a lot less cream than I throw away milk, because, oh, I didn't get enough made out of the milk, and so now what am I going to do? It is pretty amazing. This is an immersion blender, okay? So I'm going to put it in here. And okay, now, if you don't have an immersion blender, then what you can do is put the canned tomatoes in a regular blender before you put it in the pot here. But if you happened to watch the butter making class video, you know that I was having trouble with my blenders, and so I wasn't going to do that. So we're going to go ahead and add the 1 cup of heavy cream. And then in just a few minutes, I'm going to go ahead and pour this into a bowl so that you can see it, because I'm not picking it up now, it's too heavy. So the other frugal tip, which is pretty funny, is I thought I had cheese here in the house, and I didn't. It had spoiled. And I didn't realize that until just before we were going to start this. What I did have was 6 cheese Italian already shredded. And so that's what I'm going to use on the grilled cheese sandwich, because there's cheese is cheese. And it is not what I thought I would have, but it's going to still be good. Now, when you're looking at grilled cheese sandwiches, there's a couple of different people. You got butter people and you got mayonnaise people. I use mayonnaise, and I think I use it because I'm happy with the end result, and it seems to me to be just a whole lot less messy than butter. Now, so I did start heating up the pan. I didn't let it heat up enough, and so it's going to be a minute. And we're going to go ahead and put the grated cheese. On, and then I'm going to put the lid on, and I'm going to put, so I put mayonnaise on 1/2 of the bread on the inside, and then on both of the outsides, because that's what grills it. That's what toasts it. So I'm going to turn off the soup, because it's going to continue cooking without the additional heat. And we're going to let the sandwich cook. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Wednesday. So Wednesday, what we're going to do is knot magic. So knot magic is used with cord or ribbon or yarn. It is it's all good. We're going to use 3 different colors. So we're going to use pink and green and blue. And what we're going to do is a spell for healing and love and prosperity for the world. Another help to get us out of this COVID thing and in a good place, in a good situation. We're going to actually do the knot magic. We're going to make the cord or the ribbon on Wednesday. And then on July 5th, which will be a Sunday, is the full moon. And we're going to go ahead, and that's when we're going to do the magic. So this is a 2-part thing. If you want to join, you need 9 feet of ribbon or cord or yarn, 9 feet of pink, 9 feet of blue, and 9 feet of green. And we're going to braid it. That's what we'll be doing on Wednesday, is doing the braid with the meditation of what intent we're putting into that knot magic. If you don't have the opportunity to get your ribbon or your cord before Wednesday, you can do it when the video is on record and watching it at a different time. That's not a problem at all. And then just join us for the full moon, and that will be part of the full moon release as well, is starting that magic. I think that that's about it. Let me get a bowl so you can see what it looks like. And I'm tiptoeing over my cast iron right now because it's on the floor here. And if you hit it with your toe, you will be a very sad person. So I'm also going to turn off the grilled cheese. Now, like I said, I didn't get it down to just cream. So if you look at it, and I'm going to put a little bit of cheese. So this is all grated Parmesan. Here's the soup, and you can see there's still bites of tomato and onions in here as well. So I am looking forward to having this and my grilled cheese sandwich. The difference is that cheese doesn't stay in the sandwich as well if you're using the grated cheese, but I figured that that was better than not having any cheese. So thank you very much for joining. If I didn't say it at the beginning, I'm Lynn Matajan from Matajan's Herbals, and I'm thinking that the next class for the braids on Wednesday, we're going to do from the store, so you see a different place instead of my house. Thank you for joining me. Have a blessed evening and have fun. Stay safe.